If you would like to design for life rather than respond to life, this is a brilliant show for you. Josselyne, hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me, Alex.
Oh, I'm so excited. We've got end of year vibes, big energy at the end of a year. Everyone kind of thinks, oh my gosh, I've got to get all these things done that in January I said I was going to do, and then they didn't happen. And what I love about your work is there's a sense that we can, if we have the right tools, mindset, we can actually shift from that reactive vibe that we realize often at this time of the year we've been in. And then there's the
Yeah.
frustration that we haven't had enough creation in our year, enough intentional action taken that we wanted to do. So let's start there. Why did that become a topic of interest for you? I mean, you have an incredible story that, of course, I've shared a little bit about in the intro, but maybe you want to speak to that and talk about transitioning into coaching as well.
Well, I've been coaching longer than I've done anything. So since I was about
Mm.
18 years old, I've been
Yeah, yeah.
coaching people in transformative work, which is kind of strange if you think about it. Because the other day I said I was 47. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm 57. So, but I've been participating in transformation for almost 47 years. So it feels like I'm 47 in my real selfness, so to speak.
Mm.
So I started coaching people when I was a late teenager, and then inside of my own development, because as being a coach, you're always developing and discovering new things, and I have multiple coaches. I was able to disappear a limiting belief to be able to fulfill a lifelong dream of being a pop singer. And that record went to #1, and it was a dream come true. And then I said, okay, if I could do this, anybody could fulfill their dreams. It's
Mm.
just having the right tools. And so I became sort of obsessed with, and this is so long ago, but I became obsessed with empowering people to live their dreams, not chase it. And
Mm-hmm.
most people, I mean, statistically, which is kind of frightening, and I don't know if this can't be true, but it's in multiple places, that 98% of people die with their dreams intact.
Mm.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Because if I look, I have accomplished pretty much any dream I ever had, and it's through a specific methodology. So I got committed to starting to develop this as a system that people could replicate and be
Mm.
able to apply to any area of their life. So when you go back to the end of the year vibes, most of why people end up at the end of the year kind of scrambling, like, oh my God, I said this, is because they're not dealing with their goals and their dreams throughout the year. They deal with it
Mm.
in the beginning, so next month everybody's going to make resolutions, or this month, and then they're going to probably fall back after a month or two, 3 at the most. People stop honoring their word to what they said they were committed to. I mean, that's why
Mm.
gyms count on those memberships, in January, and then nobody goes,
Yeah.
come March. So what I developed was a system that you could ongoingly be creating your vision and your goals, which are different, throughout the year, so that
Mm-hmm.
you can tend to it. It's like watering plants. You water it every week instead of just in January and December.
Yeah.
Because
Then
if
you
you, if
actually
you,
end up with a plant. Okay, so
exactly.
let's just unpack vision versus goal. What is the
Yeah.
difference?
Well, most people, when I first start working with anybody, coaching them, my first question is, what's your vision? And almost every time they tell me a goal, like, oh, I want to double my business, or I want to get married and have a family. Those are goals. Goals are in reality. So they're
Mm.
things that actually happen in the
Mm.
world, like the dual world that we live in. There are things that can actually be achieved in time.
Yes.
Vision, yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah,
clear,
yeah,
like
yeah.
about a goal, right? But people confuse goal and vision. And when you conflate anything, you lose the power of each of those things that you're collapsing. So vision is more contextual and spatial. So it's kind of like, if I ask you, what's one of your goals? Just tell me one so that we can do this real time.
A goal is to get to visit my family in France next year.
perfect. You can come visit me. That's where I am. So anyway,
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah. So if you visit your family in France, that's a goal. Now, what becomes available to you experientially or spatially once you've had that visit?
What becomes available to me experientially? I start kind of dreaming about how it's going to be and how it's going to feel to be with them.
And what do you see there? If you kind of like get a sense of what is that experience of life, having had that time with your family?
Oh, the best. Like
The
connection.
best
Yeah.
connection, perfect. Connection's
Mm.
more like vision.
Got
So
it.
so if connection is your vision, you don't have to
Hmm.
wait till next year when you're in France to have connection. You can be creating that space of connection right now on this
Hmm.
call, or at Starbucks when you go get your
Hmm.
coffee, or I mean, if people still go to Starbucks, I don't know, but the point is you can live that vision. You can live that dream now, not someday, not next year when you go to France. Those are goals. Goals are like at this time in the future,
Mm.
but vision is much more of a right now and a future phenomenon. So it's
Hmm.
interesting because it's like a come from, a get to, and a stand in phenomenon.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of Joe Dispenza's work where you feel it to be it. Like you can feel the act of being in the thing before the thing is necessarily a reality. And it creates the neural pathways of possibility for you to get to that reality.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, it's like that, but the difference is that what I'm saying is you created with your word, like you just did. You
Mm.
created connection with your word, and then you be it. You don't wait to feel it. You
Hmm.
be it, you bring it, and then the feelings follow. So I'm not
Hmm.
as concerned with the feelings because your feelings are a little bit of a crapshoot, like if you could
I love
control
that
how you
word.
feel. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like really,
I
it's like,
did. I put on a show of guys and dolls at uni, so like crap shooting is
yeah.
absolutely a beautiful word for me.
But I've never been able to control my
Mm.
feelings. I mean, sometimes I feel happy, sometimes I feel sad, sometimes I feel motivated,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't. So if I don't work on my feelings, and what I'm developing is my word to create, because creation happens in language,
Mm.
and when you create, and also, other vocabularies, it doesn't have to be the spoken language, it can be art, it can be music, those are all vocabularies. But when you create something, that's a different experience of life than when
Hmm.
you react to something, which is really more where feelings live. They're in the world of
Yeah.
reaction, not creation.
Hmm. And so if someone is feeling like they're never seeming to make happen the things that they want to happen, and they live in knee-jerk land where you're always kind of
Yep.
reacting to what's coming in, what would you say is one of the most powerful ways to make the first baby step sort of shift, if you like?
Well, first you have to see that you're in, I like how you said knee jerk land, right? I call that
Mm.
the world of reaction, or the world of being messable with, which is,
Hmm.
sort of what that means. It's just like being a leaf in the wind. And even if you're really good at reacting, like highly effective people are because they have to put out
Mm.
fires and whatever, that's still reacting. And it's
Yeah.
not that space of magic and creation and vision. So the first thing you need to do is to be able to see the triggers and the red flags that you're in that world and hack it so that you
Mm.
can get to neutral. Now, neutral lasts about a nanosecond. So neutral's not really the game. Although most methodologies are like just get to neutral and then you end up sucking back in to the reaction, because once you get to that zone place, maybe in meditation, maybe in whatever practice, this is what I discovered over the last 35 years is that, that's just not sufficient.
Mm.
Neutral's not sufficient because the world doesn't tolerate empty space. So whatever nothingness you get to is going to get filled, and it's going to
Yes.
mostly
So
get
true.
filled by your reactions in the past and all that stuff. It's like a vacuum. So the world of creation, the world of vision is what I started to get really interested in, because if you can replace what is going to fill the space by default, called reaction, with your creation, then you've got a shot at actually fulfilling on your vision right now and in the future. So it's like a muscle that you're developing. So the first thing is notice it. The second thing is hack it. And
Mm.
then the next thing, and it really isn't next, it's sort of like when I work with people in the beginning, I have them pre-create a vision so they have some place to go to, because in the heat of the moment, you get to nothing. You're not going to be like, what can I create? You know, you're
Yeah,
already back
yeah,
in the
yeah.
soup.
Mm.
So pre-create a vision so they can start to practice coming from and acting from that vision.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And can you share a time in your life where you were really intentional about that creation piece? I mean, I'm sure given your
Oh,
line of work, that's happening all the time. But like
yeah.
one of the first times you noticed, like, there's something I did there to make that happen. And it was so cool. And I wonder if I could do it that way again, maybe with something else, because you've
Well,
done a
that
lot of
was
different things.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's like
Mm.
I listen to my bio sometimes when people introduce me and I'm like, I'm exhausted already. Like, I don't even know how many lives have I lived,
Mm.
at the tender young age. No. So really the record deal story is kind of a good example of that, because when I had that breakthrough, when I saw, when I was 5 years old, I wanted to be a singer. I would sing to anybody and anything, including all my stuffed animals, right? And then I was talking to my father when I was 5 in the car, and he had been a painter, and I noticed he was painting less and less. So I asked him, like, why'd you stop painting? And he said, well, you can't do your art as your career. And
Oh
in that
gosh.
moment, I know, right? And it's not like he was trying to crush my dream or anything. I mean, my father's my biggest supporter, but that's how it was for him.
Mm.
And he worked in advertising. And in that moment, it's not that he said it, but I said it to myself. Oh, you can't do your art as your career. So you better
Mm.
do something else. So I figured I'd be a lawyer or a business or something, right? And I stopped really wholeheartedly acting on that dream. I
Same.
still, yeah, you get it, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a crushing moment,
It
but
is.
it's not like he tried to do that. It's not,
Of course
it's really
not.
you crush yourself by saying that.
Yes. Mm.
So then fast forward, it's, 14 years later, I'm in a transformative workshop and somebody's sharing about something, and all of a sudden I have this insight that maybe that's not the truth, that you can't do your art as your career. Like this was
Mm.
like this huge revelation for me. Like, what if that's not the truth? Because look at all the people who do their art as their, and all of a sudden I started seeing evidence for
Yes.
another side of the story. And I
I love
thought,
that.
wow. Yeah. And it was wild because in that moment, nothing else happened other than I saw it wasn't true, and
Mm.
it got loosened. It loosened its grip on me.
Yeah.
And then within the next, 3 months, I just started taking actions consistent with being a singer. I scheduled a show, I did a demo, I started introducing myself to people as a singer, which at first felt like a lie because I still had the conflated singer loser,
Mm-hmm.
singer starving artist, like you couldn't take me. So
Yes.
but as I started doing it, I developed the muscle to say, I'm a singer because that's what I was creating with my word. And then I was taking the actions to fulfill on that. And within 3 months, I got a record deal. Now, when I auditioned for, it was a girl group called Boy Crazy with a K,
Mm-hmm.
produced by Kylie Minogue's producers, Stock Aitken and Waterman. They're celebrating their 40th anniversary this year, which is kind of amazing.
Wow.
I
That
know,
makes
it's
me
like, oh
feel old.
tell me about it. It was 30, I don't know, it's 32, 33 years ago when I had the hit.
Mm.
So, I mean, they talk about a lifetime ago, 3 kids ago. But in any case, so when I went to the record company and I was waiting to hear, they were deciding between me and like a 14-year-old. And,
Mm-hmm.
I was the oldest one that was being considered for this group. And I just kept getting like nervous, when you're waiting to hear
Of
from somebody.
course. Oh
Oh,
my
it's horrible.
gosh.
Talk
Yeah.
about reaction. I'm like, my mind is going crazy, whatever. And every time I would catch myself, okay, that's a possible way to be right now. But another possibility is I could take an action. What action could I take that would now have me be fulfilling this dream? So I would call somebody like my grandmother. I'd say, can you light a candle for this? And she'd say yes. And then I'd call another friend to share what I'm, creating. And I would just be replacing those reactions with actions that were created by me inside of my vision to fulfill this dream.
Mm-hmm.
So then this is the best part. Then I get the word that I didn't get it.
Hmm.
that they went with the younger one, right?
Yeah.
Even at 19 or
I was
20,
just
you're
about
too
to
old.
say.
It's just crazy, right? So they were going with the younger girl. And I said,
Hmm.
okay. And I was upset for about a minute because that's, a reaction. You're normally going to react.
Yeah,
But
of
then the
course.
next month, yeah. But then the next moment I said, okay, my dream, my goal right now is to get a record deal. So what action can I take to do that? So I made a list of everybody I knew in the record business. I wrote an email that I was going to send to each person. And the next day I was out to lunch with a friend planning a fundraiser for a program that I was raising money for. And this is before cell phones and,
I know. I
this
was
is
going
how
to
long
say,
ago.
even email sounds a bit like,
I know,
did you
really.
write a letter or, yeah.
I was writing, I didn't send the emails because I couldn't figure out how to get online.
Mm.
But in any case, at this lunch planning this thing, and I come back to my office and there's 7 messages from my agent.
Hmm.
And I was like, what could this possibly be about? And I, of course, my reaction is I'm in trouble because
Mm.
somebody's trying to reach me 7 times. And I call her and she said, they changed their mind. They're going with you.
Wow.
So that's a great example of hacking, being in reaction, getting to neutral, taking action from your vision, and just keep staying in action on fulfilling your vision. Now, obviously, doesn't always work out that way for people where somebody changes their mind. But even if they hadn't, I would have just been in action on what
You
was
were
the
on
next
your
action.
way with whatever the next iteration of the you got it was going to look like.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Such
I
a
think it's a
powerful
pretty,
example.
I think it is a good example. Nobody's ever asked me that question before, so I'm glad that I got to formulate that with you.
Yeah, because otherwise, like I often find when we're trying to improve certain areas of our lives that feel like the frustration piece, right? Like, why is this broken record playing in my life where I never get the thing done, never make the thing happen? Um, like you said, 98% of people are statistically getting to their deathbed like that. So we know for a fact it is the great majority of people. And I think if you can bring it to life in examples, then it's a beautiful thing. I have an example that comes to mind that's around working in. Um, actually, you know what? I'll edit that out because I'm still doing that gig and
Oh, okay.
it's not public yet. No, I can't share it.
Okay. No problem.
It's a really good example. I might share it with you when we start recording. I'll edit this out later. I'll pick up my train of thought.
And it's good when
Um,
you said and so it's
examples
helpful
to
when
bring
you
it to
use by
life.
examples. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us, because then it makes it tangible. Then you see the moments where we all experience that moment of disappointment. And that's what you can do in that moment to actually not then fall back and become a reactor by default again, or wait for something to happen.
But one of the things that I find with my clients that aren't fulfilling on their goals, right,
Mm,
is all that's missing is actions. I
mm,
mean, they're spending time being upset about, oh, I'm procrastinating. Why am I procrastinating? Why have I not gotten this? They're spending all this time thinking about the reasons versus
yes, the
taking the
irony.
actions. It's
Mm,
insane, right? So I just work with them on, okay, well, what actions are we going to take? Because if you take actions, you will have results. If they're not the desired result, then I work with people to get to the source of the undesired result. What was the action you took that was ineffective?
mm,
Or what was missing? What was the inaction that if you
mhm,
had taken would have amplified your opportunity to fulfill on your goal? So it really is performance based. My coaching, a lot of it's mindset because that's my background is transformative work, but a lot of it is performance based actions and inactions, but
mm.
coming from your vision, not coming from just getting stuff done or being busy. It's about really being able to fulfill on what matters to you at every moment. And that changes. And people don't usually check in with themselves about, well, what really matters to me now?
I was going to ask that, right? Because sometimes you think you have a vision, you think you have the goals to align with that vision, and then you get started, and it can be really tricky. I think I've been there myself where you're like, hold on, am I sticking with this and it's feeling hard and it's just my personal story I'm telling myself about it being hard? Or is this friction actually me getting to a particular point on this journey and going, I actually don't want to do this. How
Yeah.
can we actually navigate? Like, is there a process, a set of questions we can ask ourselves to separate the limiting belief piece, and that's why you're not moving forward, from the, oh crap, this wasn't actually the right goal for me right now. I'm not even actually into this, and that's why this isn't working.
Well, a lot of people end up with goals by default, right?
Mm,
So it's like they think they should want XYZ. And
yes.
I do a process with people called the dream source discovery process. And when I say dream source, you could exchange vision for that. It's the same kind of thing, that spatial
Mm,
thing. And even in my TED talk, I talk about this. But a lot of the default dreams or default goals we have, no, even if we accomplish them, we're not satisfied. And
mm,
people that, especially anybody who's like successful, they've accomplished a million things, but it's never really truly satisfying. They're never truly fulfilled. It's like a
mhm.
moment and then they're on to the next thing. That's how you can tell if it's not really a goal that you created,
Yeah.
but you're playing that game by default. And it's a tough one to see because people are all from society or your family or how you grew up, that you're just like, well, now I'm just going to finish college, or now I'm just going to go get a job, or now I'm going to start my own business because you think you should. So one
Mm,
of the biggest things that messes with people is shoulds and
mm.
shouldn'ts or
And
have tos,
not consciously realizing something is a should. So can we actually drill down to like a powerful question? I mean, I don't want you to give away your entire system, but for the sake of
No,
the
no,
end of
no.
the
I
year, and I
I
just think
want to
it'd be
give away my
really,
entire
yeah.
system. Everybody should. I have a free workbook on my website called The Basics of Being Unmessable with. It's a 12-page workbook that will bring you through step
Mm,
by step what to do. I mean,
brilliant.
obviously, it's not like the deepest work because it's a workbook, but
Yeah.
this is a perfect way for people to get started with, how do I exercise this muscle? How do I
Mm,
identify? How do I hack? How do I pre-create a vision and then take actions from that vision? I mean,
yeah.
your vision of connection is so great because that's one that you could pre-create all sorts of actions. Like if
Mm,
we were in this conversation and I said something that annoyed you, and you caught it and were able to bring yourself back to the conversation, there's 100 actions you could take to be connected right now with me. So it's
mhm.
so accessible because you could pre-create, because in the heat of the moment, if you're going into a situation with somebody that triggers you or that you get nervous around or whatever, you can be ready with, okay, I'm going to look that person in the eyes, or I'm going to
Yeah.
ask them a question, or I'm going to, whatever it is. I mean, you can create anything you want, but then you're living by design, not by
Mhm.
default.
So true. So if you really want something and yearn for it, like the trip to see your family, you make it all happen. Like the biggest thing you want out of that, you start making it happen now in
Exactly.
everyday
I mean,
life. Mm.
you can be connected to your family members on a Zoom call
Hmm.
or a FaceTime call right now. You don't have to wait till you get to France. But with regard to the goal of the France thing, what I would do with any goal, so if somebody, and I work with entrepreneurs to double their business, and we do a year-long plan. So we go, okay, where do we want to be in a year? And then we backwards plan the whole year with the milestones. Like if you want to be at $1 million by January, we'll be at 750 by October 1st, and then we'll be at,
Mm.
whatever the backwards plan is. Then I would work on, okay, so what are the actions you need to take to have the milestone that's, in the first quarter of the year, maybe April 1st, right? Because people are going into the beginning of the year, to have that be complete. And for you, if you want to be in France next year, I would say book your ticket today. Like, what are you
Mm.
waiting for? It starts when you book the ticket.
Yeah.
That's when the
Yeah.
trip starts. It doesn't start when you get to France.
Yeah, sure does. That's so true. Absolutely. Like actually plan for it, put it in the diary, get it
I mean,
happening.
that's
Mm.
that's what happened for me in another dream that I accomplished, is living in France. I mean, I have wanted to live in France since I was 16 years old. I came here
Mm.
for my high school graduation. I fell in love with it. I was like, I am going to live in France someday.
I love it. I feel the
Someday,
same way. Which part of France are you in?
I live in Paris. Yeah.
Oh, how awesome.
I know it's horrible. It's
Yeah,
terrible.
I've always said when my son finishes school, which is only 3 and a bit years away now, I will do 6 months in Paris. And that is
That's what we
like,
do.
yeah, that has
We
been
do
my
6 months here, 6 months
mm,
in New York. But I had been talking about it for 40 years.
mm,
And then I was listening to myself. I was leading a course that I designed called The Foundation, The Heart of Being Unmessable with. And in one of the sessions, I talk about someday. And I
yeah.
talk about how that's not a real day and that's not a real goal. If you have a someday goal, it's not real. And I
Mm,
got off the call and I said to my husband, I was like, we've been talking about moving to France forever. Are we going to really do it? And if we are, let's set a date.
mm,
And that was in like November. And we said, okay, let's do it May 1st. So we set the date. The next week we came to visit just for a long weekend.
mm-hmm.
Friends of ours were moving out of their apartment. We got their apartment. We
Yeah.
applied for our visas, came in 4 days. We set up French bank accounts. I mean, it was all, we started taking the actions that were consistent with that date. We booked our flight May 1st. We were like, we'll figure it out,
Yeah.
and it all fell into place. And that's, why I say, if you don't take action, nothing's going to happen
Mm.
except by accident.
Yeah, we don't want to leave it to chance. That's not a great idea. I loved your analogy of you're just a leaf in the wind with the way too messable with. And that expression, unmessable with, is beautiful. And I think it's obviously a parallel with being creating instead of reacting.
Yes.
Uh, and why did you land with unmessable with? Like, I think it's interesting
I
how
know.
these stories come to life.
Well, people sometimes think it means being tough or something. It's not what it means at all.
Mm.
It's about really having your word be unmessable with. So when
Hmm.
you create something, you don't get thrown off track. You can always get back to what you're creating. But how it came to be is so many years ago. This is like in my 20s. So it's almost 25 years. It was like 25 years ago. I was leading courses for a company called Landmark, and I was on a training call with one of my
Hmm.
mentors who just passed away this year and will be
Oh.
missed forever. Yeah, he's an amazing human being, Richard Condon. And he said something to someone else. It wasn't even to me, but he said, "Oh, you're so messable with." And somehow I heard that word and I was like, unmessable with is what my life's going to be about. That's it. My job is to develop people to be unmessable with and live the life of their dreams. And that was it. That was kind of like just my calling, so to speak.
Mm. So can I ask then a personal question?
Sure.
Because you were obviously in the girl band that had the big hit. Was there was there a moment where you realized new goal, new chapter?
Oh my God.
Um, yeah, like I was gonna say, or so many people in that business actually just get booted out, or they're no longer kind of the in thing, and so you get discarded.
Well,
What
it
what
happened
happened for
both. It was
you?
kind of both.
Mm,
We were a group of 5 people, and we were put together. So we weren't like friends from childhood or anything like
mm,
that. And Stock Aitken and Waterman at that time, the producers, there was a big backlash against them. And then we didn't know this. I was the
mm.
oldest one of the group. So they were like 14, 16, 19,
Yeah, yeah.
and we didn't know that this was the time of Milli Vanilli, where
Oh,
if anybody is old enough to remember Milli Vanilli, they had to give
yes.
back their Grammy because they were caught lip syncing. So Stock Aitken and Waterman were kind of known as a producing group that would have background singers really be singing, but they'd have like models be the front people. So it was like fake.
Hmm.
Right now, in our case, we were actually singing, but it was a real tough kind of release because everybody hated Stock Aitken and Waterman at the time, and they had had so many hits, people were just like sick of them, right? So the song didn't go anywhere when we released it in the UK. And then they released another song and it didn't go anywhere. And then they were going to drop us. So they told us, okay, we're releasing you from your record contract. At this point, we were only 4 girls. They started dropping
Mm.
like flies, right? And as we're waiting for the
Mm.
paperwork to be released, some DJ in Denver, Colorado picked up the song on import and started playing it. and it became an instant hit, and it spread. It was like #1 in Colorado. Then it was #1 in the country. I mean, it was climbing the charts, and we didn't even have an album. Our album wasn't even
Wow.
finished. So we had no records in the stores, which is
Hmm.
like,
Not
when you
even
have
the
a #1,
single?
the single they kind of quickly got out, but
Yeah,
the
yeah.
album wasn't out. So we really missed the opportunity to sell the record because we were the most played song on radio that year, and
Mm.
we knocked Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You" out of the #1
Oh,
spot. So
well,
you
that
could,
is something for your life bio
oh,
right there.
my dream is definitely fulfilled. But it was like this bad management. That's what I
Mm.
called it. It was just, we had bad management. We were the precursor to the Spice Girls. They were modeled after us, and they had great management. We had poor management, and
Mm.
didn't really work. So in any case, I then became a manager after that. So after about 5 years of doing it, we got down to 3 girls. And then at some point they were like, okay, we're not going to keep funding this because we weren't, selling records. So I was still writing and I was still singing, but one of the girls in the group, the youngest girl, wanted to pursue a solo career, and she asked me to manage her.
Hmm.
So I was like, I don't really want to be a manager. We've had such bad management, like 5 different managers we went through in 5 years. I said, but I don't trust anybody else to do it. So I'm going to help you for free until we find somebody. And that was 27 years ago. I've just been managing people ever since. It's hysterical. It's like, I like having people's dreams come true. So I just figured, okay, well, here's my new company.
But what a beautiful transition into the work you ended up landing with and creating from. Like, that's
Yeah. So
awesome.
but that's a good example of, okay, you're getting dropped. Now what action? Well, I'm going to go support
Mm.
people. And I also wanted to go have kids, which I did, and get married.
Mm.
I met my husband on the tail end of Boy Crazy. And when I met my husband, I was like, all right, I think it's time to, stop traveling around and doing radio shows at 4 in the morning. I think
Yeah.
it's time to
Just crazy
actually,
about the one boy now, and let's have
that's
the
right.
kids. Yeah.
Well, because I was older than all the girls, whenever we would do a radio interview and they'd say, so are you really boy crazy? Which they would always ask.
Oh,
I'd say
cringe.
they're boy crazy. I'm man hungry because I was already in my like mid-20s.
I love it.
It
So
was fun.
cringe, the things that media
I
asks
know. It's so
people. Oh my
funny.
gosh. Okay, so that wasn't a digression. That was a magnificent side quest. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
I want to ask about, in terms of vision and goals,
Yeah.
something that people obviously struggle with is the imposter factor.
Yeah.
Well, what do I think I deserve that for when people aren't even X, Y, Z, fill in the blanks? Or, oh, I don't even have a qualification, or whatever.
It's huge though. It's a
It's
huge
massive.
epidemic.
Yeah, and yet it is the land of opportunity globally now with the way media is structured and the way we can have two-way conversations and create communities. I mean, the mind boggles with how much someone's able to do. Like our parents used to say to us, "There's no money in art." You got to like. I
Yeah.
used to love dancing and singing as well, and tennis, and like that
Uh,
was absolutely none of that was going to make me any
That's
money
so
or give me
funny.
a
I
formal
gave up
career.
on tennis when I
Did
was
you?
10. Yes, because
Oh,
Hillary Adler started playing tennis at my tennis club and she was so good. I was like, I'm never going to be as good as Hillary Adler. So I just quit. That was before I started participating in transformation.
I know, but these things happen, and it literally railroads us at the time, and like those things don't just disappear from your
No, because
soul.
it's not about the thing, it's the
Mm,
mindset. And then you
yeah.
have a lid on what's possible. And
Hmm.
anytime you have a lid on what's possible, you're in prison.
Yeah. Ugh, that's a good one. Anytime you have a lid on what's possible, you're in prison.
And, many people, again, successful people, they create this whole their business or whatever it is that they're creating, and it's magical, and they're making mistakes, they don't know what they're doing, it doesn't matter, they're still enlivened and excited. That's the space of creation. But then they
Hmm.
create it and it turns into
Mm,
something to manage. Now I got
yeah.
to keep the company going, I got to make it survive, or it could be a relationship or whatever. It turns into a thing, and that is prison. and
Mm.
people are in a self-created prison, but they also have the key. It's just
Mm.
hacking that, and freedom is on the other side. But it does take discipline, and it
Yeah.
takes coaching, and it takes training. I mean, I have 3 coaches, because you can't do it on your own. I really find it's not one of these things you're going
No.
to self do. You need somebody who can see what you can't see,
Mm.
so you can disappear what you need to disappear, so you can be and have what you want to have.
Oh, 100%. I completely agree. And so the imposter syndrome, again, can be fixed with action.
Well, I have a, I mean, I ran into it so often, I created a process for it. It's
Mm.
free on my website. You can just
Yeah.
go and get the imposter
We'll
syndrome
pop
workbook.
the links in the show notes,
Yeah.
guys, by the way.
But
Mm.
I try, I dealt with like the things that most mess with people: money, time, but all those kind of things. So I created something for everything that I could think of. If anybody has ideas that they need, let me know.
Mm.
But the imposter syndrome process has to do with taking yourself, like your narrative about yourself, which is where the imposter syndrome lives, out of the picture. So I
Mm-hmm.
have people make a list of accomplishments that they have had in their life and make it dry, like not a whole big flower. It's like, I have worked with 10,000 people. I have, raised $80,000. I have, or
Mm.
whatever people's results are, right? I have 3 children. I graduated with these awards. Whatever the thing is, right? And then put it into ChatGPT and
Mm-hmm.
say, create an introduction for this person as if they are on a show. And
Oh,
then
I love this. That
and
is
you
so
would
great.
be shocked what comes
Mm-hmm.
out, because it doesn't have your BS. It has none of your story from when you were little and how you're not good enough and blah, blah, blah. None of it. So it is like this powerful introduction of somebody who produced those, and it's not lies, it's everything you produced.
Mm.
I've worked with 15 companies, whatever it is. And you have this introduction. Then I have them either record it or have someone else, even better, record it, and they play it for themselves every day for 2 weeks in the morning, like introducing themselves to themselves every morning.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. Gosh, okay, do you know where my mind just went? Because we're
What?
both Gen X, this will be perfect. Remember when Chandler tries to quit smoking and he buys the meditative tape? And then one day he wakes up and he's in a scene with Monica in Friends, and he's like been brainwashed by the tapes, and he's having a moment of weakness around smoking again. And he says, I'm a strong, confident woman, because the tape was about being a strong, confident woman giving up
That's
the
funny.
smoking. And I'm just such a believer in what you said, because like we do literally need those circuit breakers if we're stuck in a pattern, and we need a completely unemotional thing coming into our brain showing us what's possible.
And, if you think about it, the new narrative
Mm.
is no more or less true than the old narrative. It's just you've been telling yourself the old narrative for so long, it seems true.
Mm.
So if you create a new voice coming into your head, not just yours, then you have a shot at rewiring those neuronal pathways, which are hardened, but they're not solid. You
Mm.
can rewire them.
Yeah, so good. Ugh, so good. Chat GPT, hey? Something good might come out of AI yet.
Yeah. I mean, from time to time, I use it to structure things, like format this manual or whatever. And it's really remarkable how quickly it can spit things out. My husband was like, "AI, what?" Blah, blah, blah. I said, "Okay, I'm going to say, write a letter to my wife of 30 years. Write a love letter to my wife of 30 years." That's the only instruction I gave it, and it spit out this letter, and his eyes were like, "Oh my god!" So if you can use it rather than it have use you, you're good.
You're good. Exactly. Again, creating versus reacting.
You got it.
Now, burnout, overwhelm. These seem to be things that are coming up a lot for people in this frenetic um, landscape, shall we say, of, I think, the social media piece that's been added to our lives, the 5 bazillion connections, the, oh my gosh, I should send I'm so sorry about your mum to the person you met once at a conference, and then you're not even making time to see your friend because you've got all of this dilution. I genuinely believe this is playing into our epidemic of overwhelm and
Oh,
burnout.
totally.
And I think we can confuse the overwhelm and burnout with our own lives, but we haven't actually realized how much of our lives aren't actually our lives, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, it does.
And so I wanted your view on that, and how you help people navigate um like flabbiness that we include in our lives, that just it's useless, it's unhealthy, and it keeps us in a reactive passive state. And yet, because of big tech and the algorithms, it's so seductive and so easy to get caught up and caught.
Hmm.
Um, and then we get to like 11 p.m. and we haven't even done our own laundry or something as simple as emptying a dishwasher, but we have spent 3 hours on Instagram, And I just like, what hope do we have of fulfilling our dreams in this equation, right?
Well, you don't, because that's
Mm,
almost all reaction. So, I mean, I have
mm-hmm,
so many resources around this.
mm,
Some are free, some are paid, but the one I think would make the most difference in your conversation. Well, two things. One thing is overwhelm and burnout. Let's take burnout. Burnout, usually, the
mm,
source of burnout is being disconnected from your vision.
100%.
If you're connected to your vision, you could be busy all day long and have energy at the end of the day, right?
Mm,
So part of the burnout cure is to keep your vision alive and real, keep it in your environment, put it on a post-it, whatever you need to do, share about it, multiple
mm,
times a day so that it stays alive and real. So that's one quick answer. Then the overwhelm part, I have this workshop that I do called Design Your Days, because what I've found with most people that experience overwhelm is that they're not in reality about what there is to do. They're
mm,
in a story called I'm overwhelmed, I have too much to do, I don't have enough time, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's all a narrative. But if you look at your actual calendar, if you don't have everything that you have to do in your calendar, then you're good luck. Good
mm,
luck being effective. Good luck not being overwhelmed. So for me, my calendar is like my canvas. I create my life on my calendar. I have showering on my calendar. I have
oh,
take
wow.
my blood pressure medicine. I have, leave to go to that appointment, because, most people schedule things. They don't even schedule travel time. And then they're rushing and late to this, and their nervous system is all screwed up. So I have a whole calendar workshop. I mean, it's only like $19, so it's almost free, but it's a 45-minute workshop with worksheets and everything that will transform your relationship to time and overwhelm. I have not been overwhelmed. I can't remember a time I was overwhelmed, honestly.
Hmm.
And I am not like an unbusy person. I have 3 kids. I was the president of the PTA, the president of the neighborhood. I had a nonprofit. I was raising $90 million. I was managing the careers of 100 actors, leading transformative workshops on the way. So it's not like I'm like not, I don't have a ton of free time or something, but I
Mm,
haven't been overwhelmed ever that I can remember. Maybe when I was a teenager, I can't remember. So I have
wow.
a methodology for it. It's simple, but it takes discipline. So lots of people that I work with initially resist putting things in their calendar. They're like,
Mm,
I don't want to put my shower. I don't want to put when I'm leaving for an appointment. I'm like, okay, but then don't complain about overwhelm. Because if you have to-do lists, they never get complete. If you have those things in your calendar, there's a specific time in which you're going to be doing those things. You now have that thing happening in reality, even if it's a
mm,
month from now, like for you with your trip, right? If you even put in your calendar today that next Thursday you're booking the ticket, now that's out of your space. It is in your
mm,
calendar. So you want to get things out of your space, right? Your mind, your whatever. It's not a good place to keep things because your memory is a bad test for reality. So if you get
yes.
it all in your calendar, then you can even move things around. So like if I have yoga in my calendar for, 7:30 in the morning, how I create it is I put a context before the action. So I'll put vitality yoga, because if you don't put what you're creating,
Oh, that's a nice differential. That's
yeah,
important. That
exactly.
I was like, oh God, like, no, if I put it in the calendar, then I feel like I'm in prison. But then as soon as you linked it to vision, Now you're talking. Yeah, I get that.
Exactly. And
Mm.
that's the game changer, because now you're creating your
Mm-hmm.
day. And even if you move it and say, you know what, I'm going to do yoga at 10 a.m. instead of 7:30, and you move it, it's there to move. If it's not there, you can't move it.
Mm-hmm.
And when people double book themselves, which is a source of a lot of overwhelm for people, you can't do that in a calendar. You can only do that
Mm-hmm.
in your head. If
Yeah.
no two things can exist in the same place at the same time in physical reality. So
Mm.
and I color code and I do a whole thing with people about how they can use their calendar to really empower themselves. Because mostly it's just like a to-do list. No, what if it's a to-be list
Mm.
with to-dos that are an expression of what you're creating?
A to-be list with to-dos that are an expression of what you're creating. That is pretty darn magical. I love that, Josselyne. I genuinely
Right?
do. Like
I love it too.
it's a very cool shift from what we know to be doing, most of us most of the time, when it comes to to-do lists and diaries. And yeah, I definitely have never put take a shower in my diary ever. I'm gonna give it a go.
Well, it's funny. I didn't have it in my calendar yesterday. And guess what? I didn't take a shower because I didn't have it created. And I just went through life, and life is coming at me and I'm dealing with things. And before I knew it,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you know what? It's 6 o'clock. I'm not going to take a shower today. I'll just take it in the morning, because I
Hmm.
didn't design it. And anytime somebody's like, oh, this isn't happening, I'm like, okay, but did you design it? Did you
Mm.
design the actions that are going to fulfill on that goal or not? If you didn't, then this is not a mystery.
Hmm.
May the force be with you. If you don't design going to the gym, it's not like, wake up and be like, I feel like going to the gym, then
Yeah, no.
okay, good luck. Because I've never felt like going to the gym in my life. So if
Yeah.
you're waiting for your feelings to tell you what to do, then you're kind of screwed.
Mm.
Then you're in the world of, like you said, knee jerk town.
Yeah, exactly. Because ultimately you won't feel like doing much. And then something will come and demand your attention that it be done that you didn't
Exactly.
design.
And I have a friend, actually, Jen introduced us, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the friend that, she loves to connect people, right? This is like her connection is one of her visions, right? So
Mm.
she's so good at it. I mean, I've never met anybody who's as good at connecting people as Jennifer Hill, right? And one of the things that was happening is that she would have all these connection conversations and she wouldn't be getting done what she wanted to get done. So
Mm.
I told her, I was like, you need to put into your calendar an hour of last minute connection time block so that you
Yeah.
can schedule people in that block and you don't have to displace other stuff. And she loved that. She just started doing it. And, she's one of the people who did the calendar workshop or the Design Your Days workshop early on and was like, this is transformative. Like, and I was like, oh,
Mm.
maybe I'll make it a thing. I'll give it to people.
Oh, so good. Love it. I will definitely be including the link to that one as well. Thank you. Um,
Absolutely.
I have a last question for you, and
Sure.
that is around the theme of end of year. Do you have an end of year, beginning of year process
Yes.
from a calendar perspective? Do you think it matters to have one? Talk us through it.
Well, I have a workshop for this too. It's called Create Your Year. Of course, I got an app for that. But I ran
Like
it. This
you're
is
sounding like a veritable New Yorker right now.
I am a veritable New Yorker, but it's just crazy because these are the things that people deal with. And that's
Yeah.
why I created this Create Your Year workshop. I did it live last year with a
Hmm.
group of people, a whole day workshop. And then I recorded it and put it online for people. And the first thing you want to do at the end of the year is get complete with the year,
Yeah.
because many people have regrets or resentments or things they didn't accomplish and they just kind of sweep them under the rug and they don't deal with it, and they try and create on top of a bunch of mud.
Mm.
So you must get all that stuff complete. And I have a process in that Create Your Year workshop that allows you to ask the kind of questions. But if you want to get started, it's just, what regrets do you have? What things did you say you were going to accomplish that you didn't? What things did you say you were going to accomplish that you did? What did you accomplish that you didn't say you were going to accomplish? So it's like basically an inventory. And then allowing any shoulds, shouldn'ts, good, bad, right, wrong, all of that to like fall to the wayside and start
Yeah.
with a clean slate for the
Mm.
new year and really look at, okay, what is my vision, not goal, but what is my vision? And now standing in that vision, what are my goals by the end of the year? What do I want to have accomplished? And then there's a whole worksheet to then backwards plan your year so that you have milestone results. If you're going to, let's say you want to, you know, get married by the end of the year, you know, then by November, you will have at least scheduled the wedding. And by June, you will have met the person. And by, you know, whatever it
One would
is, you know,
hope.
you can,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, you don't have to hope if you have this
Mm.
plan, because then you're
Yes.
creating a plan and you're going to take actions. Like people are like, oh, I haven't met the one. I'm like, well, what actions are you taking?
Mm.
Well, I'm kind of hoping to meet somebody. That's not an action.
It's
So it's
so
like,
true. Yeah. My
you got to
coach,
ask people to set you up.
yeah, my coach was sharing just an anecdote of another client's, not mentioning any names or anything like
Right.
that, but he did mention the dating example and that she had this clear vision for a goal to meet someone. But it just was all too hard to go out and meet people, and she hated the apps. So what do you do every night? Well, I just get home, I make myself some dinner, and I watch some TV, and then I'm tired, I go to bed. And where is this going to be getting you closer to the goal that you have? Whereas if you bring in the vision piece and then the actions that you need to create that vision, much more likely.
And the goal. And sometimes people are just full of it. I mean, that's the
Mm,
thing. They're lying to themselves. Like you said, how do you know when it's not a goal that you really want? I mean, at some point, you have to look at what game are you playing,
yeah.
because your actions are going to tell you what's important to you. You
Mm,
know, and there's two tongues in your life. One tongue never lies. It's the tongue in your shoe. The tongue in your mouth lies all the time. It says, oh, I want to lose weight, as you eat cheesecake every night, you know, or I want to get married, as you sit and binge watch Netflix. I
yeah.
mean, it's just, what are you committed to now? What actions do you need to take? If you're not acting on something that you say you're committed to, you got to question the authenticity of what you're saying.
Mm,
It's not
yeah.
like you're wrong, you're just full of it, you know.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And it's about just stop lying to yourself.
Exactly. And to others, but really to yourself, because people do convince themselves they're in a game. Like I'm in France, right? I am not committed to losing weight right now. I'm just not. You know, it's like
Mm,
as I eat bread every day. I mean, that's my actions. I'm not going to like
mm,
pretend, oh, I really want to lose some weight. No, when I get back to New York, okay, fine, I'll create that game. But right now, I'm like, I don't care what I weigh.
mm.
I don't even have a scale. I don't care. What
Yeah.
I'm committed
Well, the
to
beauty
is
of Paris is,
enjoying. Yeah.
you're walking everywhere anyway. So like a little bit of
Eh,
bread doesn't hurt. Mhm.
not as much as it does in New York, but it's
Mm,
definitely not like I'm losing weight. I mean, my clothes still fit, but I'm like, all right, you know, that's not the game I'm in right now. The game I'm in is
mm,
really enjoying every moment and every morsel that's
mm,
available to me here. That's what's important. And you get to say what's important. You know, you don't have to play any game. I mean, unless obviously if your doctor says your heart is whatever, you know, and you got to
yeah,
do
of
some stuff.
course.
That's a
Yeah.
different thing. But if you're creating what's important to you as a matter of your word, then there's nothing you have to or can't. You can
Mm,
create anything. It's not like you have to spend more time with your family, but if that's important to you, then create that as a game and then take the actions to fulfill on that. But if you say, oh, I really wish I could spend more time with my family, and you're taking no actions to do
mm,
that, I would question, I'd call a little BS on that. I'd be like, well, but I don't think so.
mm. Yeah. I mean, what a fantastic way to actually start thinking is like thinking more and thinking, and screening yourself more. I'm really
Yeah.
picking up on a big, just like checking in and making sure you're not lying to yourself and you're not living in, oh, I probably should do that.
Yeah. That's a big thing to notice. That's a red flag that if you're saying should or shouldn't, you're definitely in the world of knee jerk land or reaction.
Ah, what a fantastic hour of power, Jocelyn. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for joining us. I think this was the perfect conversation to be having as we round out another year and to put some ideas into people's heads that next year actually can be different and by your design. So I
Yeah, yeah.
really appreciate your work. It was an awesome chat.
It was so great being with you. Thanks for asking me questions people have not asked me in the past. So I appreciate that.
That's kind of my little zone of genius, I have to
I love
say.
it.
I like finding extra juicy bits. So thank you for noticing.
Absolutely.
I hope you loved today's show as much as I loved bringing it to you. I want to remind you that if you are someone who craves a low tox community that is judgment free, full of empowerment, has health professionals and building health professionals that can support you, as well as me in there answering questions multiple times a week, I want to invite you to join the Low Tox Club. For the price of less than a cup of coffee a month, you have an annual membership for $49 Australian, so it's about $30 US or euro, that allows you to have a member masterclass every single month with a health professional or global expert from the podcast, where we have them to ourselves for an hour to ask questions and deep dive further. You have the beautiful supportive chat group. You have Q&As with me answering questions. We read books and talk about them, and a whole bunch more. You can head to lowtoxlife.com, hit the explore tab, and join the club is the very first option on that list. Of course, we have over 10 evergreen courses that you can jump into anytime, whether it's navigating everyday low tox swaps with our Go Low Tox signature course, whether you have kids and you're wanting to know how to best support them with our Low Tox Kids course, whether you're planning a family and looking at a healthy low tox preconception journey, reducing inflammation, especially the chronic kind, with our Inflammation Ninja course, many other courses. You can again head to lowtoxlife.com, hit the courses tab, and you'll see all of the options, which includes a business course, my Low Tox Method program. A lot of people don't know, but I was doing a lot before starting Low Tox Life in 2009, and I was a business consultant across hospitality, health, retail, and cosmetics. I have been in business consulting for a very long time, so I absolutely adore helping people move into the low tox space or develop their low tox businesses. So that's a way I can support you. And then, of course, there's our wonderful social media communities at Low Tox Life on Instagram, and of course, the website with over 250 gluten-free recipes, blogs, downloadable PDFs to help you navigate wanting to get rid of synthetic fragrances in your school or office. I could go on. So head to lowtoxlife.com, see what takes your interest or fancy, and thank you so much for being a part of our podcast community. I love reading your reviews. I appreciate every follow and subscribe, and I want to just remind you to finish off that if there's anything you heard that you found interesting from a medical or scientific perspective, it is intended as education only. Please always chat to a health professional who knows you and your situation best. I'll see you next week. Bye.